Joining us now is Valdrack Jaentschke, Nicaragua's Minister Advisor for International Affairs and the Caribbean. Great to have you with us on this important week and this historic year.
It's great to be on. Good evening.
Tell us a bit about the significance of this 40th anniversary, which is celebrated just 1 year after the destabilization attempts witnessed in 2018.
The 40th anniversary of the revolution is a milestone. It's a milestone because we have been building for the last 40 years a very young democracy. Nicaragua is a very young democracy. We started building our democratic process immediately after we overthrew the dictatorship in 1979. And I think the fundamental achievement, if you want to capture it, has to do with peace, with stability, with reconciliation, with national unity and well-being of the people. If you want to define the importance of this revolution, we have been delivering, as we say, fundamental and relevant resources for the well-being of the people.
Absolutely, and it's quite impressive what has been accomplished by the people in government there. What have been some of the most important achievements? Tell us a bit more since the triumph of the revolution.
Well, I think we need to set this in a historic manner. In first place, we came to government. We overthrew the dictatorship in 1979, and immediately after overthrowing the dictatorship, we've had to face one of the most terrible war that was waged on our people back in the 80s, as you know, what is called the Contra War. So many of the development and many of the restitution of rights that we were beginning to implement since the revolution were immediately boycotted. That process of democratic building, that process of delivery to people was immediately boycotted by that Contra War. But the Sandinista front kept struggling, kept onward. And when we came back into the government in 2007, we were able to build a very sustained development process that took us into many internationally recognized achievements. We are the country, we are the safest country in the region, for example. We were able to slash poverty in 2/3 over the last 10 years. We had grown at 5% average a year for the last 10 years. Those are very important because then we have been capable to deliver free and quality education, free and quality healthcare, free access to many of the fundamental infrastructure. Remember, Nicaragua is one of the, as we would say, one of the smallest economy in the region. Nicaragua is a country that, because of the intervention from the U.S., we have not developed as fast in the region. So therefore, the achievements that we were able to attain in the last 10 years are very important. As I said, infrastructure, health, education, rights, for example. Nicaragua is regarded as the 5th country in the world in gender parity, for example. The safest country in the region, as I said. Those two indicators are what we would call multifactorial because they have to do with many other indicators. So you don't reach to gender parity as its own. It has to do with access, it has to do with services, it has to do with democracy, it has to do with recognition of rights of of women in this case, and also indigenous and Afro-descendant, which is also a very important achievement in our country.
Absolutely. And you mentioned U.S. intervention and the Contra War. Speak to us a little bit about what happened during that period.
Nicaragua has been historically intervened and meddled. Our internal affairs has been, we have suffered meddling from the U.S. From very soon after independence in 1821, by 1854, Nicaragua was annexed to the Southern Congress of the U.S. and slavery was imposed in the country. We defeated that intervention. We were also sanctioned and intervened at the beginning of the century, of the 20th century, by the famous what we call the Knox Note, by which General Zelaya at the moment, who was carrying out the liberal revolution, was then forced out of power and overthrown by a coup. Then came Sandino, who had to rise against the military intervention, the marine intervention that was in Nicaragua for 2 or 3 decades. And Sandino rose against that intervention and expelled the U.S. Marines from Nicaragua in the 30s. Then the U.S. then used the way of assassinating Sandino and dismantling Sandino's proposal to then impose a dictatorship that lasted 45 years. That is the dictatorship that we overthrew in 1979. So you can see a very strong continued of the popular movement from the defeat of William Walker and his intervention in 1854 to 1856, which we call the National War, to Sandino expelling the Marines in the 30s, and then the revolution in the 80s. But then the U.S. has never stopped meddling and intervening, and then you have the Contra War in the 80s. So that is how you can understand that a government that came to power in 2007 and was so successful in delivering, in creating wealth, in delivering, and as I said, in distributing, the wealth in the society, was then seen as a bad example, as seen as a threat, because if you are a country that maintains dignity, if you're a country that maintains your own position, if you're a country that don't allow to be meddle and to be then intervene, as I said, then you become a bad example. Because on one side, we had all of these successful achievements in the economic sphere, in the political sphere, in social sphere. And on the other side, we were a dignified, independent, sovereign, self-determined country. Those two things seems that they don't work together for the empire, and therefore they needed to dismantle that proposal. That is how you understand what happened in the country last year, by which they tried to impose, tried to carry out a coup d'etat against President Ortega.
Absolutely. Now, last year, I heard a bit of debate internationally with critics saying that the Sandinista government under President Daniel Ortega had dropped some of its socialist and revolutionary principles. Do you believe that the Sandinista government, is still a socialist and revolutionary government?
The revolution, the Sandinista revolution, the inspiration of Sandino, the inspiration of our founder, Carlos Fonseca, our proposal is a revolutionary proposal. It's a proposal, there is nothing more revolutionary than free and quality health. There is nothing more revolutionary than free and quality education. There is nothing more revolutionary than roads, than access, than electricity. Those are the elements that are at the base of our revolutionary proposal. There is nothing more revolutionary than being independent, than being sovereign, than standing in front and standing up to intervention by the biggest powers, I would have to say, at this stage in the world. Revolution, there's distribution, social participation. Our motto is Christian, socialist, and in solidarity. Those are elements that configure our revolutionary proposal. We don't need to sit down and start, as I would say, defending what is our revolutionary proposal. We are implementing a very advanced social revolution in Nicaragua, and that is recognized by our people. As I said, there is nothing more revolutionary than people who have historically have not have access to electricity, to water, and to sanitation to have it. Now, the fact that some of the international organization recognizes that doesn't take down the importance of that revolutionary proposal. But I think at the basis of it also, peace, stability, reconciliation, and national unity are the fundamental fundamental revolutionary proposal in a country in which the elite has used polarization and has used division in the country of our national unity, have never allowed the country to really build a national unity. And it's only Sandinista revolution, it's only the Sandinista proposal that is capable of putting on the table a national unity proposal. So therefore, you have a reconciliation, national unity at the base of a revolutionary proposal, but also distribution, participation, access, and protagonism by the people. Those are the elements of our revolution. I think we are moving forward with these proposals. There is no, that's probably the reason why the empire states that our country and our revolution is one of the biggest threats. It's a threat because it's a good example. It's an example for the people in Latin America. It's an example for the poor people throughout the world that we are capable to build a revolution, that we're capable to deliver, that we're capable then to build a country that is based on defending its dignity, its sovereignty, and its independence.
Now let's look ahead. What does the Frente Sandinista hope to achieve between now and the end of Comandante Daniel's presidential term? And do you expect to see younger generations propel the revolution forward in these coming years?
The revolution is a process, it's a continuum. It's a continuum by which the popular movement that in our country, for example, that Sandino was the first time in history that the leader of the uprising, in this case, Sandino, came from the popular movement and defeated the empire. It's a continuum that takes us to the founding of the Sandinista Front. It's a continuum that takes us to the defeat of the dictatorship and the defeat of the intervention in the 1980s. It's a continuum that took us to struggle during the neoliberal counter-revolutionary process between the 90s and 2006. And it's a continuum that moved forward to continue building a country that's independent, a country that is capable of, within its sovereignty, to build well-being, to build a communication, to build relationship with everyone in the world. And I think that is what you will see forward. We will continue to implement those fundamental elements of the revolution. President Ortega has said to us that the most important achievement, the most important objective of our revolution is the struggle against poverty. There is nothing more revolutionary than defeating poverty, than eliminating poverty, than allowing our people to rise forward, to rise in better condition. And that is the revolutionary proposal that is move forward. As I say, it's a continuum, and we will continue that process throughout time.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today during this historic week there in Nicaragua.